There was a lot of ownership that needed to happen based on that feedback. And I wrote my family like a 3-page letter, just owning everything that I had done, over like that 6 months. And I told them, I was like, I have a letter that I want to read. And this was over dinner. I was like, I have a letter I want to read to you guys. And it's hard. It's going to be really freaking hard for me to get through it. And they're like, okay. And so I literally just read this letter. And I'm not.
Larry, what's up, brother? Good to see you. It has been a little while since we did a podcast. I figured with you coming out with your latest book, we probably ought to do this again.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me back. It's always good to jam. I was thinking about this before we jumped on today. I think you're ahead of me in maybe podcast episodes, but I was looking at like my episodes, and as of next week, which will be my birthday, I will have crossed over 1,200 episodes. But I think you're ahead of me on that one. But I can't believe like you and I sitting here, we've known each other for nearly a decade, and all these shows that we've done, it's just crazy.
Isn't that weird when you say it that way? We've known each other for a decade. I'm like, no, a couple of years, sure. But man, to think how fast all this thing goes, and the changes, the ups and downs and the highs and lows that both of us have had, and kids and the struggles of raising kids. And, you and I have talked on a personal level about challenges between both of our children. And man, it's a ride. Fatherhood, life, it is a ride. It's a crazy roller coaster.
It really is, man. And to be honest too, like I've really enjoyed like, our friendship, our conversations, because like it's been personally for me, man, it's been so helpful. Like, I think a lot of people probably view maybe you and I on these platforms like, we have it all figured out. We don't have these dark days. We don't have like horrible times from time to time, and we don't have these valleys. We only have the peaks, which is totally not true. And I know that, you've helped me tremendously, through things I've been through. And I know even now we're, you and I are on a bi-weekly call with 2 other guys who are in this man space. And that's been incredible for me, and I know for the 4 of us.
I mean, it's funny because we talk about this stuff on a daily basis, the importance of having men in your corner, men that you can turn to. And yet this is something that we only started doing, 3-4 months ago. And we're talking about how important this is. I think it just goes to show how hard it is for guys, especially considering, men like all of us, we have jobs, we have our wife, our significant other, we have kids, we have responsibilities, we have church obligations and requirements. Like there's so much going on. And I think you tell me what you see, but being around other men in some sort of organized capacity where you're there to develop and grow and learn and lean on each other is just something that I think a lot of people look at as a luxury, not a necessity.
I agree, especially, in this day and age. I mean, we've never been more connected as a society, because all you have to do, and I use that term in quotes, right? Connected, because like we see each other's lives through social media, we can contact each other easier. Yet, I think we live in an age right now where men, like we're actually isolated even more. Like it's harder for us. But I would agree, it's a necessity. It is not a luxury. In fact, I think if you look back in time, this was a necessity, and this was a thing that men did life together in community and in tribes. And then I think, for the past, I don't know, maybe century or so, we've gotten further and further away from that, where I think a lot of people do view it more as a luxury now versus a necessity. But it's absolutely a necessity. And you and I mean, like we see that in our communities, but also now, since you and I and these 2 other gentlemen, Connor Beaton and Matt Bordeaux, we're on a call every other week, helping each other, leaning into each other. And that has been a game changer, I know, for me as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's important that we talk about, but we also embody it. And, in the spirit of the discussion I wanted to have with you today, it's obviously, which is on fatherhood, because that's primarily what you focus on. There are things that need to be learned that I think men are really, really struggling with when it comes to fatherhood, because so many men, and I know you and I have similar stories, we never had really great examples of what it meant to be a man and what it meant to be a father. And now all of a sudden, we're thrust into. In the first part of your book, you talk about the dawn of fatherhood. So when a man's going to become a father, that's a scary time. Like if you've never had kids before, that's so scary. It's so nerve wracking. And there's no real good information or example for what you should actually be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So that first chapter, the dawn of fatherhood, like I paint a picture, and the picture is really, to be honest, like I'm trying to paint a picture of what's going on in a guy's head right before, he's about ready to open that chapter, and I in that chapter, I call it, a part of when you have your first kid, a part of you dies, but then another part of you, that you didn't even really realize was there comes to life. Right. But it's this massive transition, and it is scary. So like in that very first chapter, I extract all of those fears that we have. It's like, am I going to be able to financially provide? Am I going to be a good leader? Is my marriage going to completely deteriorate? Just kind of a funny story around this. Like I remember 18 years ago when my first son was born, right before he was born, like I remember how terrified I was and how nervous I was. And everyone around me was like, oh, you must be so excited and this and that. Like you must be just, ecstatic. And I'm like, and I just would nod my head and smile and be like, yeah, yeah. And then it was my stepmom. So my dad's wife, she's like one of the easiest people in the world to talk to. And it was a week before my oldest was born. And I'm sitting there at her dining room table, and it's just me and her having a cup of coffee. And she's like, oh my gosh, like it's down to the last 7 days. You must be so excited. And I'll never forget this. I'm like, yeah, I'm terrified. And she's like, what? And she's kind of like laughed. And I was like, no, seriously, like I'm absolutely like so stressed out about this. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And she's like, oh, you're being serious. I'm like, yeah, I'm being serious. I was like, I almost like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, what if me and Jessica's marriage, like just goes south? What if I'm a terrible father? What if I can't get the kid to stop crying? Like, what if I lose my patience? What if I lose my job? Like all these things that I was so terrified. And it was just like a flood, just boom, right. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, it's been so long since obviously we've had like a baby, like your brothers are grown. And she's like, I forgot all about those fears, but yeah, those are real. Like those are real fears. And you know what? No one really talks about them.
Yeah. Well, what do you say to a guy who has those fears? Because they are all valid. Now it's not just you and it's not just your wife. Now you're talking about bringing an innocent child who will literally die if you don't provide and take care of this thing. So what do you tell somebody who's going to become a father for the first time, or maybe even somebody who is a father, what their role and responsibility is as a dad? Like, is there some encapsulating principles that we should be striving for?
Yeah. I think the perception of, cause I don't know about you, but like I started asking questions before my kid was born. I'm like, like how do you make this work? Like, how do you do it? Like, how do you make sure? And the answers that I got back from people were like, you just do it. You just figure it out. And I'm like, I don't know what it was about those answers, but it never sat well with me. I'm like, I don't want to just figure it out. Like that sounds horrible to me. Like I don't want to just do it. Like I want to really understand what is required, right? And what I need to do. And it really, we could list off all the things. Like I think order of man, like provide, protect, preside, right? Like those things are so important, and they're very meaningful when it comes to fatherhood and when you're leading your family. But I also think, while those words and those guidelines are very, very real, I think the perception is that, well, I'm just going to go figure it out, or I'm just going to wing it, right? I think the perception is that, or what's really effective is our egos, quite frankly, just need to die. And what I mean by that is our ego will tell us like, well, I'll just figure it out, I guess, right? Versus like, no, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'm in some of these things that I'm fearful of. What if I just go learn how to do these things, right? And whether that's read a book, listen to a podcast, join a community, whatever it is that you actually get to be a student, right? Because anything that we do well in life, right? And you know this, and so do I, we learn how to do it well. And I think that's one of the biggest missing things is like, we could list off all the things, but that if you're not willing and open to be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go learn. I think that is the first domino that needs to fall.
Yeah, just constantly learning. I know you feel this way. I mean, over the 1,200 episodes you've done, and I think I'm right around there. I don't know right offhand, but I'm the beneficiary of the work that we're doing. Yeah, other people are being served, sure,
Yeah.
but I get to ask guys like you all the questions I want to ask, and so being able to be in this position of just constant learning is valuable. I also think there's something to be said for doing the things that don't come easy for you. So, for example, I tend to be pretty disciplined. I tend to be pretty structured. That comes easy for me. That might have been developed. It might just be because that's my nature. So, being able to provide that discipline and that structure in the relationship I have with my children comes easy. Where I fall short is patience, empathy, kindness. So those are things that I could work on. But I know men who are extremely kind, empathetic, patient, some of the most patient people you've ever met. Where a guy like that might be lacking is structure, discipline, making sure that there's consequences for your actions and your behavior. But everybody needs to learn something different. I think that's what makes it so challenging.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think every single dad out there, we've got strengths, and then we've got things that we've got opportunities. And one of the things that I struggle with is like, so I am empathetic, but I can also be very direct, right? And I try to choose the times to be empathetic and the times to be direct. And sometimes I just completely, face plant on that one. We don't necessarily, sometimes we're not the best when it comes to structure, right? Like with the kids, and we can be more reactive sometimes, my wife and I, right? When it comes to behaviors or standards or things like that we see in the kids. So we always have opportunities to improve upon. The other thing too, and I'm kind of ashamed to say this, but it is what it is. And I've always been this way. I find it one of my opportunities of growth is just playing with my kids. Now, when my kids are older, like I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, like I love, and now I have a 10-year-old, like we throw the football. Yeah, that's easy. Like we throw the football around.
It's easy.
And we wrestle each other, right? And we would do that. But like I've really been, and I'll just share like one of my weak points right now. One of my weakest points right now is the relationship I have with my youngest, and that's my 8-year-old. And I don't know why that is. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm so tight with my teenagers, like my older two, and I'm pretty tight with my 10-year-old. But it's almost like this sort of more adult relationship now, and it's very easy, and it's really, really connected. And we have like these really cool conversations about being a man and navigating life and the things they're going through with their friends and their girlfriends. And like, I love that stuff. But when it comes to my 8-year-old, it's harder for me. Like I've been really, really diligent lately about like, I need to spend time with this kid. Like I've got to have a connection with this kid because I really don't have a deep one right now. So I took him to the pool the other night, just me and him, our subdivision pool. And he's got like this crazy, crazy like imagination. Like he plays by himself like so well. He's not a big screen kid. So he's always playing with toys, always using his imagination. And we got in the pool and we both have water guns. I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, we're going to play Adventure of Zelda. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And he's like, just follow me. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like following him through the pool, and we're like shooting these dragons and monsters. And I'm like, what are we doing? And I'm just like, I'm trying to get into it. I'm laughing through it, but I'm like, I can tell that's a struggle for me. Like I just playing with him, but I also know it's like super important too.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think we're in a similar boat on that, because I've got 4 as well, 3 boys and a daughter. My youngest is 8, and I love that kid. We have a great time together, but I've really had to just let go of any expectation, because you're right. When my oldest, who's 16 now, wants to hang out, we hunt together. We play, the older boy, I'll go outside and we'll play basketball with the boys. Like, that's easy. But then I asked my youngest, I'm like, what do you want to do? He's like, let's do Pokemon. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Or the other day, he was like,
well, how do we do that?
Dad, can we play with Legos? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, let's go do Legos. And so we go into the room, and I'm thinking he wants to build. No, he doesn't want to build. He wants to take the Lego vehicles that we already made and like play with them. I'm like, I don't I don't know how to do that. Like, it's like doesn't compute for me or something, you know? And like you said, with the pool, it's like, man, I'm trying to let go of just let go. That's it. Just, hey, if he wants to play Pokemon or take the try, like whatever, fine, whatever. That has actually been really helpful, but a real struggle for me too.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And my 8-year-old's into Pokemon too. And I'm like, what do these cards even mean? He's like, oh, this one's powerful. I'm like, how do you know? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But
totally. I know. It's funny. I am curious how you get feedback from your kids, because I think feedback's important, right? And you talk about developing compassionate communication, but how does a guy get feedback from his children in the ways that he's doing good and well and the things that he can improve on? Because, I mean, obviously I think anybody listening to either one of our podcasts wants to get better. So how do you get the feedback? Is it just observation? Is there a series of questions that you ask or tools or resources that you use to get really good information to further develop that connection with your children?
Yeah. So this probably sounds, and as you're asking that, I'm pulling something up here because I'll share with you exactly what I do. We've got 2 programs within Dad Edge. One is the Alliance. We've had that one for years. And then the other one's called the Boardroom, and that's for our business owners. And our business owners, when it comes to them, one of the things that they truly want, like the guys who come and do life with us, they already usually have like a really successful business. But what they really want is like, okay, how do I take some of these skills that like help me build this empire and like where I'm not leaving like my best relationships that are under my own roof on the table, right? So we really help those guys elevate. We help them with business, obviously, but we help them elevate those relationships even more. So what we did is we actually developed a tool. We call it the 5 dials. But one of the tools is what we call the family score. And we as coaches, so I'm one of 4 guys who coach these guys, and we all are required to do this as well. So one of the things that we do on this family score tool is every quarter I sit down with my family. It's my wife, my 2 older boys, and now my 10-year-old, because he understands this stuff as well. And I take them through 10 questions, and I tell them, I was like, I need you to be brutally honest, like absolutely brutally honest. You're not going to be in trouble. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I need to know where I'm going, what I'm doing well, and I need to know where I can improve. So they rate me on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is not at all. 2 is not too often. 3 is sometimes. 4 is often, and 5 is all the time. So like, for instance, the first question is, I balance my time well between family and business. And they can rate me 1, yeah, you're terrible at that, not at all. Or 5, all the time, you do well with that. Or somewhere in between. And then they rate me on that. Second question is, I'm calm under pressure and patient with you and everyone else. Third one is, I'm quick to admit, apologize, and learn from my mistakes. Number 4 is, I listen attentively to you and others. 5, I am kind, respectful, and emotionally connected to you. 6, I lead by example and model the kind of life we want for our kids. 7, I'm fun to be around. they made a joke the
That's
last
always
time
a 1
we
or
went
what?
through that one.
Oh, okay.
They're just like, it depends. Like, so like, yeah. 8 is, I make you feel better when you're having a bad day.
Is it chore day, or
9
is it like, are we at the pool?
Yeah, it depends, right? Like, I make sure that I give them this survey when we've had a really good day. But no, 9 is, I do things that make you feel loved, appreciated, supported. And 10 is, I follow through on my commitments. So those are the 10 questions, and then they rate me. And I actually do a self-evaluation before I have them rate me, and I compare the scores. And the thing that I found, because we've been doing this now for a year and a half, I've found that in some of those categories, I'm much harder on myself than they are on me. And they're like, no, it actually isn't as bad as you think. And then they'll give me the evidence to prove. And then there's some where I actually rate myself higher, and they're like, not so much. Like, these are some things that we've experienced with you, and it's really good feedback. But that's one of the ways I do it. And then a second way that I do it is, it's more of a roses and thorn conversation, where it's more just not that highly organized as like them doing a survey, but I'll just ask them, I'm like, what are some things that that I do as your dad that you absolutely love, like that you would love to see more of, right? And then there's a question I say, well, what are some things that I do that you would actually like to see less of, right? And I'll get great feedback.
Yeah, that's good. When you were talking about the questions, I got thinking in my mind, like, are you getting the question that came up for me is the feedback accurate, right? Because a lot of the times, for example, the work-life balance thing, the family work balance thing, kids don't know. Look, if in their eyes, they'd love to have you there 100% of the time, and that's just not realistic. It's not feasible. So I was thinking to myself, man, the feedback's not great, but you're just trying to get their perception of it. And then you guys can have, it sounds like, a further discussion about, hey, here's why I do go to work. Hey, I appreciate you wanting me to be here, and I want to be here too. But you can have a further discussion. You're not taking this as unequivocal truth. It's just what they're experiencing, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's really how I get a good glimpse of how they see things through their eyes, which I really like. And you're right, some things, can be accurate, and some it's just like, well, that perception might be a little off, and then there's an opportunity to explain it, right? Another interesting thing that, and I think this really goes back to perception. My wife just brought this to my attention, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so simple, yet it's something that I've missed because I perceive it through a certain lens, but yet my kids and family, my wife see this through a different lens. So, in the times and in the days where I have like, a challenging day, or I'm not feeling my best, or like something maybe bad happened, within the organization or something like that I'm dealing with. When my kids will come to me, they can kind of see it, and they'll be like, hey, are you okay? You seem like you're upset, or you seem like you're mad. And the first thing I'll do is like, no, I'm fine. And it has nothing to do with them, right? It has nothing to do with my wife, has nothing to do with my kids. I'm like, no, I'm fine. And my wife came to me and she's like, is it us? Like, are you upset with us? And I'm like, no, like not at all. Why? And she's like, have you ever thought about actually just communicating what it is that's on your mind? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, just simply say like, I just had a bad day at work and I'm just thinking through some things in my mind. If I seem distracted or if I seem angry or overwhelmed, it has nothing to do with you. I'm just trying to figure some things out. And I'm like, no, I haven't really thought of that. And she's like, well, you should do that, like communicate, and I started doing that. And that's where like my perception of like, yes, I'm having a bad moment, but I don't want you to see it. Like that's my perception. Like I don't want my kids to see that. And I think that's like a dude thing. I think it's a guy thing. But the way my kids receive that is, did I do something wrong? Like, am I in trouble? Am I doing something that annoys you or whatever? And it's like, that's the furthest thing from the truth. And I had no clue that's how they perceive that response from me until my wife brought it to my attention.
I think that's really good feedback. I think if I had to guess, and I've been here too, is like my son says that, hey, are you fine? Are you okay, Dad? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. When clearly I'm not. Nobody's going to ask you that question if they don't experience something. It's the same thing when a guy asks his wife, hey, babe, are you fine? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. Which means the exact opposite. You're not fine. And I would like to know what it is. I think men probably perceive it as being weak. And another reason I think that we would be hesitant to share that way is because, at least for me, I don't want to unload my burdens unnecessarily on my children. And I don't actually think either are true. There's a way to do that appropriately. And there's a way that there's a term I heard called parentification. Have you heard that term?
I haven't, no.
It's a really interesting phenomenon. It happens a lot in divorces where a parent will turn their child into an emotional support unit, and they'll begin to unload their emotional, mental, and even sometimes physical burdens on their child. And then that child starts to believe they're in a parenting role because they're being treated as a significant other as opposed to a child. So it actually can take place where you are dumping your baggage onto your children. And of course, we don't want to do that as men.
No, that's like, I think that's not the goal of any guy that wants to do that, right? Which is probably the biggest reason, like you were saying, like that we respond with like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't, because I don't want to, and it's true now that you say that, like, I don't want to like share with them like, yeah, I'm stressed out about this or this. Like, they don't need to, like, in my mind anyway, they don't need to bear the cross of that, right? They don't need to bear that burden. And they don't even, I think but at the same time, I also need to let them off the hook and let them know, like, it has nothing to do with them, right? It's just something that should, I'm in my head. I'm trying to figure some things out, but it has nothing to do with you. We're good. We're great. And I think that's what I think that's what they really need.
Yeah. Well, I also think as you're saying this, and I'm not great at this, this is something I'm actually taking away and I can do better. So thanks to your wife for helping me as well. And the rest of the guys who are listening,
she's pretty smart.
There's some learning moments here, right? Like there's some teaching opportunities here. Like if you're having a bad day at work, man, you could teach your children to whatever degree they can understand, like what work is, and work isn't always perfect. Or maybe you're dealing with some bad news and you decide to share it in an appropriate way. I think it's actually pretty healthy if you can be reasonable, you can respond to it well, and then walk your child through what you might be experiencing, because it's likely that at some point in their life, they're going to experience the same thing. Seems like it's a healthy practice.
I agree. I mean, like, even with my wife telling me that, I'm like, if I'm modeling, like when something is wrong, and I'm modeling it by just literally like kind of like emotionally and even physically like pushing them off, like I'm good, like kind of like almost like the energy of just don't mess with me, right? I think you're sending the message of, you don't even want the people around that care about you the most, right? But I think it also, like, if you were able to articulate, my wife brought this up to me. She's like, do you realize that if you're able to articulate what's going on in your world to the kids, like, you don't have to like burden them with what's going on, but just simply say, I'm having a bad day today. This happened and I'm just trying to deal with it right now. And trying to sort through some things that, what we could do to solve it and that kind of thing. She's like, what you're actually teaching them is tremendous self-awareness and tremendous communication. She's like, how many grown men, and actually even grown adults too, I don't think this is necessarily a man or a woman thing, because I think we both do it. I think it's just women are better about it, explaining what's going on in their world. But how many times does a guy just respond just reactively, like, I'm fine? Like, and it's almost with that energy of like, I'm fine. It's like, I'm not fine and leave me alone. Like, that's actually what it probably feels like to them. She's like, but if you just simply explain like what's going on, you're teaching them self-awareness. And then by explaining, you're teaching them clear communication that, you're letting this person off the hook. So when they go to have their own relationships, like their own marriages with their kids, like that's what they're going to do. Otherwise, you're going to be raising these young men just to say fine, and then they're pushing their family off like you are. And I'm like, that's a good point.
You're right, and I hate it.
Yeah.
There's also emotional regulation. I think we as men put that off. We say, I'm fine. And I actually believe we have noble intent behind it.
100%.
And it's not that we're doing something because our intentions are misguided. They're misguided, but they're not malicious. I'll say it that way. But there's this thing, I was talking with my girlfriend just the other day about this emotional regulation for our children. Like, we all experience emotions. We all have them. And if we can't manage and regulate our emotions properly, then there's no way we can help our children manage the emotions that they're experiencing in their life. So when you're actually addressing or acknowledging that you're emotional about something and you're handling it in a positive, manly, masculine way, they're going to see that and think, okay, well, there's a good modeling, to use your word. There's good modeling on how I can behave when I'm mad or sad or upset or whatever.
Yeah, I think, and that's how they're going to learn, right? I mean, you and I know Bedros Koulian, and he's got that quote, which is the best lessons in life are caught, not taught. So if we're not doing those things, they're not going to learn, and we could tell them all day long, hey, talk to me, open up to me, what's going on? But if we're not modeling that for them, it's, we're going to fall short, I think.
Have you, when you do that, the survey specifically, and I'm sure there's other times in life too, but have you ever reacted poorly to any feedback that your kids have given you? And if that's the case, how did you rectify it so you can still continue to get the feedback that you want?
You know, that's a great question. And I'll be honest. No, I haven't. And that's because, to be honest, when I go through those surveys, I'm expecting, like I'm almost like bracing myself for something that's going to come my way. And I'm a pretty self-aware person. So like, I know, you know, what my shortcomings are. I know what my problems are. And so like, when my kids bring them up to me, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much what I was thinking too, you know? So like, I haven't experienced that. I will say this though. When I can prep for that, because that's like on my terms, right? I'm like, okay, I know today's the day I'm gonna be giving them the survey over dinner, and like, you know, so like I can prep for that, right? There are times though when I haven't reacted very well, when I'm taken by surprise. So like, I asked my wife, because I went through, I would say the past, like, and you know this because we've been on biweekly calls, but like I really, through the process of writing this book and some there were some major challenges that came my way. I would say from August up until probably the beginning of March, right? I mean, and I was in a bad mental place, man. I was really struggling with even writing this book, but I think everything happens for a reason. And I remember, you know, feeling like this distancing between like me and Jessica, and even like this distancing between like me and the kids, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I remember sitting down with my wife, and I asked her one day, I was like, hey, you know, is there something going on here that I should know about? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I just feel like our connection's really off, and even my, you know, connection with the kids is off, and I don't know what's going on. And she just kind of looked at me and she was like, I have some feedback. Do you want to hear it? And I'm like, oh shit. Right. And I'm like, and I'm like,
nope.
And I literally like, I had no time to like brace myself for that one. But I said, yes. I was like, yep. And she was like, okay. She's like, well, she's like, you haven't been the same guy for like months. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I knew what she meant, but like to hear from her perspective, she's like, you're so distant. Like you're in your head a lot lately, and like you're quiet, you're cold. And she's like, and I know you, I've known you for so long. I know that's your way of distancing yourself because you're trying to like figure things out and manage your mind and your head and all that. She's like, but by distancing yourself from us, we don't feel connected to you. And she's like, I didn't want to tell you this, but like the boys have asked me a lot, like, what's wrong with dad? Like, why is dad so angry? Why is dad so frustrated? Why does dad speak to me the way he does? And I was like, do I speak to the kids? She's like, yeah, like you have like this very direct sort of cold tone to you every now and again. And I never used to see it before now. And now I do. And she's like, you know, you're even kind of colder and distant with me. Like I'll ask you what's going on or like whatever, or I try to help you, or I'll like come up behind you and I'll rub your shoulders. You don't even respond. And I'm like, and there's like all these things that I wasn't really fully aware of because I was in here, you know, a lot, and I wasn't like, my mind and heart wasn't with them. And that was hard, man. I was like, oh shit. I was just like, I looked at my wife and I was like, have I done damage that's unrecoverable? And she's like, no, but you're getting close. And I'm like, oh my God. So dude, and you guys held me, you know, the four of you guys, you know, you, Connor Beaton, Matt Bordeaux, you guys held me accountable to do something that made me feel so damn uncomfortable, but I did it. So there was a lot of ownership that needed to happen based on that feedback. And I wrote my family like a 3-page letter, just owning everything that I had done, you know, over like that 6 months. And I told them, I was like, I have a letter that I want to read. And this was over dinner. I was like, I have a letter I want to read to you guys. And it's hard. It's going to be really freaking hard for me to get through it. And they're like, okay. And so I literally just read this letter, and I'm not a big crier, and I freaking lost it, man. Just lost it. Like I'm just trying to get through this letter. Cause like I was pointing out all these things that I know that I had done and like how they were probably feeling. And And one thing that I can tell you is like, it was a hard moment, but everyone after I got done, like stood up and we like got in this circle, and it was just received with so much grace and so much support and forgiveness. But that was freaking hard, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting a little emotional just hearing that story, because there's things that I've had to talk with my children about in my own behavior that are just absolutely there. Some are embarrassing, some are just hard to share. You know, it's painful, but it's really healing. Like, it actually is really healing, and I think it helps bridge that gap. Outside of the way that you responded with that with your wife and kids, how did you get out of your own head? Because there's a lot of guys. I've been here. I'm not in that space now. I know at some point in the not so distant future, there will be things in my life that cause me to get that way. I think this is a pretty typical phenomenon for men when we have so much coming at us. How did you begin to, yes, you apologized and you're making amends with the relationship, but what did you do personally for yourself to get you in a better place mentally, emotionally, spiritually, et cetera?
You know, there's a lot. And I think that, I think we as men, we leave a lot on the table when it comes to like really stacking in some positive things that will elevate us. And some of the things are super easy to miss. The most powerful domino that fell was, you know, I can't remember if it was just you and I just talking, just over text, but it was like, I think it was me that was just like, hey man, like I need other leaders in my life right now. Like right now, like I'm leading, you know, this, you know, our community, and I'm coaching other men. Like, I'm doing so much pouring out into other people. I'm not actually getting any fuel myself right now. And that's when you and I started talking, and we're like, well, what if, and you were telling me, you're like, I'm kind of feeling the same way. Like, I don't really have like that go-to, and I'm not going to go to my community for that. I need other people that understand like what I'm doing, where I'm at. And then you and I roped in Connor, and then we roped in Matt, and, you know, having that bi-weekly call with the four of us has been a total game changer. And even though sometimes, like, you know, I know the four of us were planning an event, right? So that, you know, the part of that call is planning for that event. But the other half of the call is like allowing the guys to have us to have a hot seat, right? And for us to just call each other forward and to point out blind spots. And even if I'm not in the hot seat, you know, or if it's you or Connor or one of the other guys or Matt, I still get so much value out of that, because I'm like, you get to extract all these different things that you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm not Matt, but I kind of am experiencing something like what he's going through, and we're getting all this great feedback. So having that circle of like-minded men back in my life, that is number one. It's a game changer. And even like the four of us on that text thread, like when something, you know, happens, or we have a question about our businesses. Like, I know I just asked you guys, I'm like, hey, have you guys thought about this in your business? Cause I'm thinking about it right now. And just having like a soundboard for that. The other thing too is, I don't think we can ever miss, you know, health and fitness. And I don't mean like you have to have a six pack to be a dad or anything like that. But like being able, for me, fitness is like that physical, emotional, mental outlet, you know, to where like I can like literally take, you know, all my stress or whatever it is I'm going through, or even just the enjoyment of the endorphins that I get when I do fitness. So fitness is another one. The other one too is like, if I eat bad, like, and I know a lot of us, like we just sort of like, we're like a fast food country, right? But dude, if I eat bad, like that impacts my mental health, like, because I feel like absolute garbage if I eat bad. You know, if I'm drinking, you know, if I go out on the weekends and I have a few drinks, you know, by Sunday, like I'm not in the best like mental and emotional state, because, you know, I've had like one or two nights of where I've had a few drinks, you know. So I think like really understanding like the inputs that we have, whether that be media, whether that be nutrition, whether that be alcohol, or whatever it is, like you need to tighten those things up, because it's only going to help you feel better and show up better, you know, if you're not putting the negative things in. And also I would say too, neglecting like your body, because, and I think that that's a big miss for guys sometimes but going back to what you said, I think guys neglect that part of it because it comes from a noble place. Like they're like, well, I don't have time to take care of myself because I need to take care of everybody else. But I think we leave a lot on the table when we don't take care of ourselves, because we can actually serve and lead at a much higher level, much higher frequency if we're taking care of ourselves.
Well, and let's be honest too. I mean, we say that, right? I can't go work out because I'm too busy providing for my family or doing this or that. Like that I've heard it referred to as a noble obstacle. And it is. That's a noble thing that you're saying, but it's just not true, because there's an hour, I promise, in your day that you're throwing away that isn't devoted to serving your family, that isn't devoted to helping you better your own life in some way. So if you're going to stare at yourself in the mirror and try to convince yourself that you can't go to the gym because you love your family and you want to spend more time with them, then the rest of your schedule better be locked in tight. Otherwise, you're just a liar. And I'm not pointing fingers. I've used noble obstacles as excuses before, but that's all they are. They're lies.
Right. Yeah, they are. And I think I had a podcast guest who's like, you know, he's one of those, I can't remember who he was, but he's one of the screen experts, right? The things that the screens do to our brains and all that. And he's like, and one of the things he said on the podcast was, he was like, you know, people say they don't have time, you know, to do this, to work out, to do this or whatever. He's like, just look at the screen time on your phone. I mean, my screen time on average, this is horrible to admit, but I mean, obviously my entire business and everything I do is through a device, but I average 5 hours a day on my phone, 5 hours. And I guarantee like all 5 hours is not the productive work, right?
No, it's crazy. That really is. There's also the guilt and shame, I think, that just bogs a man down when he's not doing what he knows he should be doing. There's this integrity gap. Let's say, and I've been here with, whether it's drinking or not working out and not putting in the work, when I'm not doing it, not only do I not physically feel better, there's just extra baggage. Like I walk around and I'm like, oh man, I should have went to the gym today. Oh man, I can do better than this. And I start having all these negative thoughts and this self-doubt, and it's accurate, but I don't want to carry that around. I want to be free from guilt and shame because I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you mentioned in there integrity. You know, I think when we're not living, you know, through that integrity, right? It's like our body and mind knows, right? And you know, it's like, so for instance, like I'm not a big drinker, but I'll have a couple drinks with my wife when we go out on a date, or if I'm with friends, I'll have a couple drinks. But there's always something in me, and when I say a couple, I literally mean like 2 or 3. You know, on a night that I'm going like quote unquote all out, it's 4, right? Which that's a lot for me. But I don't know what it is, Ryan, but like maybe it was because I was raised in an alcoholic family. Maybe it's because like I know like deep down like nothing's good is going to come out of this. But every time like I drink, like it just doesn't sit well with me, like for some reason. But I won't say it out loud. I'll keep it to myself, but I also feel it. Like I know it. I'm aware of it. Like, and it does, you know, impact like my integrity, and like it impacts like I sit there and I'll be having a drink and I'll be sitting there, you know, and I'm like, I just had a conversation with my son about how he shouldn't really drink at parties, and I'm sitting here drinking, and I'm like, and it just messes with me. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's that mental and emotional baggage that we don't talk about a whole lot. You know, there's another thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm not trying to like say anything positive about myself here, but I think it's important I bring it up. You know, I noticed something in you that was off. Like you just did not seem like the same guy I knew. And I messaged you about it. And I almost didn't. I was like, nah, he's fine. Like he's a big boy. Like he'll handle it. If he wants to talk about it, he can. And I almost just brushed it off. And then I thought to myself, no, you know what, damn it. Like I wish I would have had somebody
that reached out when I was at my lowest time, 2.5, 3 years ago. I don't put it on anybody else. I'm certainly not doing that. But what I am suggesting is that if you see somebody who you care about, who you think they're struggling, you have a moral obligation to say something in love. Hey, I care about you, but something's going on, and what can I do to help? I don't think enough guys are doing that. Maybe it's ego, maybe it's not wanting to pry or get nosy or make a relationship uncomfortable or awkward. But damn, if you're a person's friend, then do what a good friend would do.
And I got to thank you for that, because I was on. I remember the call, and that day was bad. Like I just had a really. I think the day is like I was insanely overwhelmed. Like there were so many things coming at me that day, and in that season as well. Like have a book coming out, and you're on deadlines, and you got this going on, that going on. This person needs this, and my family's giving me this feedback over here, and like it was just like I felt like I was just getting my ass kicked, and yeah, I was on that call, and I remember like trying to hide it, which is, that doesn't help anybody. I was trying to hide it, and we got off that call, and it was like 10 minutes later, I got that message from you, and it was exactly what you just said. And I think I chimed back in, and I was like, thanks for checking in. I'm not great. Like, and I think we kind of went on to talk more about it on the next call, but it was that check-in that I really needed. And I think that I agree with you, and you use the term moral obligation. And I think it's good to point out like what goes through the mind of a guy before he asks a question like that. Well, I don't want to bother him, like, or I don't want to bring anything to his attention and make him feel worse. Like that could be there too. I don't want to be nosy. That could be there. But at the same time, like you could have a guy that really, really well, and if you're sensing he's going through like a really dark place, then lean into that intuition, right? And ask, right? You have no idea. Sometimes just asking, just checking in with somebody is so effective. You don't have to solve a problem. The person doesn't even necessarily have to open up and share what's going on, but just the fact that somebody else cared, right? Is sometimes that's all that's needed. And I know for me, like when I got that text, it was almost like oxygen, it was just like, man, like that was awesome for me because like, but there was also some shame there too. Like I was just like, shit, man, I didn't want him to see me like, struggling on that call. Like I didn't want that to be obvious, and it was, but that, I think again, that's like our ego, right? You got to kind of put that ego to death and give gratitude to the person who checked in on you. Right. Cause it really, really helped. It really helped me out.
Well, and also, I mean, just to share my experience of that, like I didn't think less of you. I wasn't judging you. I wasn't thinking less of you. I didn't think you were being weak. I was like, what's going on with Larry? Like it was just care. And so I think it's important we know that, because that, like you said, the ego might actually keep you from being honest with somebody who has no judgment towards you. They genuinely just care and want you to be okay. But you got to let that wall down especially if somebody, is soliciting it. You've got to let that wall down. It's going to serve you really, really well. Do you find the same thing to be true with kids? Because in the book, you talk about forging these unbreakable bonds with your children. And is this how you forge those bonds? I mean, obviously it's experiences and being there and supportive, but is it helping them navigate these challenging times too? Or what does it look like to forge these bonds that just can't be broken with your kids?
So I think that's a great question. In that chapter, what I really talk about is just, how I face planted this for a long time, because like, I think if you're the dad, we view ourselves as like the guide, right? The almost the expert, right? Of life. Like I'm 48 years old. You're 18. I know much more. I can tell where this is going, and I'm going to tell you how to fix it and all that other stuff. Yeah. And I think there's a time and a place for that. Like I do. Cause there's a time and a place where your kids are like, Dad, like, give me some advice or tell me what to do, right? Or give me options. But what I've realized is if you really want to create an unbreakable bond with your kids, whether it's your daughter or your son, you got to be a really damn good listener, like a really good listener. And I'm not talking about listening for words, just only, but like when my kids, like open up to me. Like, I'll give you an example. My oldest son right now is at wrestling camp this entire week, and he's got this friend. And he's got a group of friends, but he's got this one friend who treats him like shit. Like, just tries to, I don't know what he is like. And this friend of his, he's like a little guy. He's like 5'5", and he's got to be the loudest guy in the room. He's got to be the funniest guy in the room. He's got to be the most obnoxious guy in the room. And he's, quite frankly, he's annoying. And he has this habit of treating Ethan like shit. And he, for some reason, like, it's the only friend that Ethan will take it. And I'll tell you, man, like, it takes everything in me to be like, dude, you need to cut this guy out of your life, man. Like, this kid is toxic. Like, he's very disrespectful. He's not a friend, right? But instead, like, so for instance, this morning, he texts me and he's rooming with this kid at wrestling camp. And he's like, Dad, he's being such a jackass. And I'm like, and all I did was I said, oh yeah, tell me more. Right. But there's a part of me, right, as a dad, be like, dude, I've been telling you to get rid of this guy. Right. But I'm like, no, tell me what's going on. Because here's the thing, forming an unbreakable bond is like, I think, you're this person that your kids are going to come talk to, right? They're going to come and talk to you, with you, right? Not necessarily they're going to have a sit down and listen with me, but they want to talk to me. So I said, tell me what's going on. And he's like, he's doing this, he's saying this, he's doing this. And instead of advising him, I'm like, I just simply started asking more questions. I was like, do any of your other friends treat you like this? And he's like, no, they don't. And I was like, so if none of your other friends treat you like this, then what is this relationship to you then? And he's like, I don't think it's a friendship. And he's basically articulating everything that I would tell him, but I'm doing it through questions, and he's the one telling me. And I think the more we can have our kids talk, and we are this guide by just asking really deep, generative, curious questions, that the more that they can talk to us, the more that they're going to figure it out versus me telling him what I think he should do, because I don't think that's going to be nearly as effective. And it's also not going to be nearly as connecting, right? And here's the funny thing too. I get this all the time from the kids. I'll sit there and I will do like 10% of the talking. And usually when I'm talking, I'm either reflecting back what I'm hearing, validating where they're at, or I'm asking them more questions. And I can't even tell you how many times that we've gotten through a conversation like this and they're like, man, Dad, thank you so much. And I'm like, I didn't really do anything. Like, all I did was ask you some questions and listen. You were the one who actually figured this out. Like, we just guided you there a little bit, right? And so I think that being very curious, I think really, really deepens the connection. Asking questions to get your kids to articulate their own thoughts and their viewpoints and their perception of what's going on, I think is incredibly connecting. Because, like, I don't know about you, but like, I would really, really pick and choose what I would say to my mom or whatever guy was in her life and my life at the time, because I'm like, if I go to them, I'm going to get just bombarded with this, right? And I would avoid it. And I think a lot of guys, I think a lot of adults, had that experience growing up with their kids, with their parents. And a lot of us still do that with our own kids. But that's not the most connecting thing to do for, I would say, the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, it just, as a kid, having your mom or your dad lecture you and come at you like that is really off-putting. It's like, oh, great, Dad's going to give me another lecture, and it's just not going to help you have that better relationship at all. If anything, it's going to push it in the opposite direction.
I think there's another element here. Like, take this situation, for instance, right? Where something is happening in your kid's life that maybe they feel a little bit of shame around, right? Or a little bit of like, it's almost like, I think a lot of our kids view, Dad as like, I want to tell Dad the good stuff that I'm proud of, but I don't want to come across as like weak or less than if something bad is happening. But I think, because like, if I were to, I wouldn't say blast him, right? But if I were to be like, dude, man, like, get this guy out of your life, man. Come on. Like, right. Like, I think for him, that would be like, he's getting shit from his friend, but now he's getting crap from me. So like he just sort of feels like, well, God, this really sucks. You know, another quick example of this is my 10-year-old right now. He is at sports camp this entire week, and he's got this kid that is bullying him. And you know, he got in my car. I picked him up, and I could just tell it was an off day for him. And I go, "Hey, man, you doing okay?" He's like, and he just was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Hey, dude." I put my arm around him, and I'm like, "You sure?" I was like, "It just feels like something might have happened today." And he's like, "There's this kid, and he's bigger than me. He's older than me, and he's bullying me." I was like, "Well, tell me more. What's going on?" And he's like, "He's pushing me down all the time. He calls me weird. You know, he's constantly hitting me. Like, I don't know what to do." And you know, there's all this advice in me, right? Especially from a guy who was bullied a ton growing up. And instead, I just validated where he's feeling. I was like, "Oh, dude," I was like, "It is no fun to be bullied." I was like, "I was bullied growing up." And I was like, "And that is a freaking hard day, man. Like when you just want to get out of the situation, you don't know what to do." I was like, you know, I know you and I have gone back and forth on, you know, how to defend yourself and that kind of thing. But, you know, what do you think we should do about this? And I just engaged him in it. He's just like, "Can you help me with some words?" Like this was how he told me. He's like, "Can you help me with some words?" And I'm like, "Help you with some words?" He's like, "Yeah, help me with some words of like how to talk to him, like to just get him away from me." He's like, "And I also like, can you help me with like self-defense again?" Cause I tell him all the time, I was like, you know, I did 12 years of martial arts. I was like, I can't teach you how to fix a car, but I can teach you how to defend yourself. And so we went out in the garage, and you know, we went through like, you know, verbal warfare, right, with a bully, like what to do, what to say, how to basically warn them. And then like we hit the pads, like, and I reminded him like how to throw a punch and like where to kick, you know, the spots to hit and all this other thing. I was like, you know, listen, like if this kid continues to put his hands on you, you have the right to defend yourself. Like, he's like, "Well, I'll get in trouble there." I was like, "Not with me, you won't. And if you get in trouble there, we will go have a conversation with the coaches there." I was like, "But you have every right to defend yourself. Like, don't take this." Right. And, but that conversation started off with me asking him a lot of questions, bringing him more into that conversation, making him feel comfortable. Cause like, man, when I was bullied, and I'll never forget like this window of time where my mom was with this guy. He was like a really like toxic dude. And I remember like coming home and being like, dude, I was like, I'm getting bullied. I'm getting pushed around. And like his response to me, he goes, "Well, don't be such a puss." And I was just like, all right, that's not helpful. You know what I mean? Like,
so now you're going to bully me.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I was just like, okay, great. I feel so much better.
Oh, that's it? Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Well, Larry, I love what you're doing, man. Like, to be as mindful as you are, you know, I obviously, you know, you and I are well aware of our own shortcomings and where we can do better, but you've always been somebody who's super aware, very mindful, always trying to improve yourself as a father. I've gained so much from our friendship and from what you share, and it's been powerful to me. Why don't you tell the guys where to learn more about what you're up to? Obviously, pick up a copy of the book, and about anything else that you might have going on.
Yeah, for sure. So I think this is a good time. And thank you, by the way. As much as you say you learned from me, I learned just as much from you. So you've been just so helpful and supportive in my life, and especially during trials and tribulations. But yeah, I just wrote a book. It just was published about a month ago. It's called Spirit of Fatherhood. It's basically everything that we have learned, you know, over the past decade about, you know, relationships and mindset and all this. It does have a faith-based element to it. So I do want to tell guys about that as well. As far as things that we're up to, man, one thing I'm super excited about is this event that me, you, Matt, and Connor are going to be hosting in 2020, you know, first week of 2025 in May. I think that's going to be just, I can't wait for that event, because I think we've got the perfect spot picked out, and good dates. And I think we're going to just get really good guys from all four communities to come together.
Yeah, man. I'm excited about that. Well, Larry, I appreciate you. I'm excited about what's going well for you, and obviously here to support in any way. So we'll make sure we sync everything up. Brother, appreciate it. Thanks for joining me today.
You bet, man. Thank you for having me.